once a country, a nation, that had no mirrors at all. They had all been broken, smashed to smithereens by order of the Queen. And if the smallest bit of looking glass had been found in any house, the Queen would have had all the inhabitants of that house put to death. You see, the Queen thought that she was dreadfully ugly. She didn't like what she saw in her reflection. She hated her hair, her skin, her nose, her figure, and she did not wish to be reminded of all that. It was a great consolation to her that other women were unable to see their own beauty. That's why the Queen prohibited mirrors of any size or shape. Now, I have to point out that this Queen was not ugly in the eyes of others. She was not as pretty as she had been in her youth, but none of us would be put off by her appearance. If she were alive today, she would probably be a good customer for plastic surgery and cosmetics and hair dyes and I don't know what else. If she were Queen today, she would certainly outlaw cameras as well as mirrors. Now, we should get back to the story. The young girls of the country were not at all satisfied. What was the use of being beautiful if you could not admire yourself? It was a dismal state of affairs, and there were just as many pretty girls in that country as in any other. The Queen had no compassion. She was well content that her subjects should suffer as much annoyance from the lack of a mirror as she felt at the sight of one. Now, in a suburb of that city, there lived a young girl called Jacinta, who was a little bit better off than the rest, thanks to her sweetheart, Valentine. You see, if someone thinks you're beautiful and loses no opportunity to tell you so, he's almost as good as a mirror. Tell me the truth, she would say. What's the color of my eyes? They're like dewy forget-me-nots. And my skin? Like rich cream with a touch of peach syrup. How about my lips? Cherries are pale beside them. And my teeth? Grains of rice are not as white. But my ears, should I be ashamed of them? Yes. If you would be ashamed of two little pink shells among your pretty curls. And on he would go endlessly. She delighted, he deliriously happy to give his beloved such good news. His words came from his heart, and she had the pleasure of hearing herself praised. Their love grew deeper and more tender every hour, and the two lovers made plans to be married. Unfortunately, the news of their happiness reached the Queen. She had heard of Jacinta, and she despised the girl because of her beauty. One evening, a few days before the wedding, Jacinta was walking in her father's orchard when a woman approached her as if to beg for money. Suddenly, she jumped back away from Jacinta with a sharp cry. Good heavens, what do I see? What's the matter? Can I help you? Tell me, what is it you see? The ugliest creature I have ever encountered. Oh, you must not be looking at me. Oh, yes, my child, it is you. I've been a long time on this earth, but I have never met anyone so hideous as you. What? Am I ugly? 100 times uglier than I can tell you. Your eyes are sort of a dirty gray, but that would be nothing if you didn't have such a persistent squint. Your skin is a sickly yellow. Your mouth is pale and withered. Your teeth are large, crooked. I'm not pretty myself, but I should die of shame if if I looked like you. She reduced Jacinta to tears, and then that old witch hobbled off with a croak of laughter. She had done what the queen had ordered. Poor Jacinta. She was distraught. I'm ugly, I'm ugly, I'm ugly, she repeated over and over. Valentine assured her and reassured her 100 times, leave me alone. You're lying. You pity me. You say that because you feel sorry for me. Don't even speak to me. To persuade her, Valentine brought people from far and near. Every man declared that Jacinta must have been created to delight the eye. Women were not quite as enthusiastic, but they too admitted that she was beautiful. Still, Jacinta persisted in her conviction that she was repulsive. What could Valentine do? Finally, he decided that Jacinta must see herself in a mirror. Since the queen had banished mirrors, he would beg the queen to allow Jacinta to see her image, if only for a few minutes. Now, I usually pause here to indicate the passage of time. It took a little time to arrange an audience with the queen, very important person. Finally, they were presented at the queen's court. What is all this? Demanded the queen. Who are all these people? Your Majesty, you have before you the most unfortunate lover on the face of the earth. Who cares? Is that a good reason to come here and annoy me? What do I have to do with your love affairs? Your Majesty, listen to me. This young girl you see before you is the victim of a strange delusion. She imagines that she is ugly. We must convince her of the truth. If you would permit the very limited use of a mirror. What is that? The queen rose to her feet. Who dares to speak to me of a mirror? You say she imagines herself to be ugly. Well, she's right. I never saw a more hideous creature. At these cruel words, Jacinta thought she would die of mortification. She fell on the steps of the throne in a faint. But Valentine was incensed. Your Majesty, you lie. You must be mad to say such a thing. He wanted to say more, but he had no time. The guard seized him and held him down on the floor. At a sign from the queen, the headsman came forward. She always kept him nearby. Off with his head. The executioner raised his gleaming axe just as Jacinta came to herself and opened her eyes. Now, the custom in that country was for an execution to be paused while the condemned person spoke his final words. Valentine used this chance to call to his love, Jacinta, look at the axe. See your image in the shiny steel. 2 shrieks pierced the air. One was a cry of joy, for in the glittering steel Jacinta saw herself so wonderfully lovely. The other was a cry of anguish from the queen. She also looked at the axe and saw her image. The soul of the poor queen took flight, unable to bear the frustration of having her edict violated so boldly in her presence. You may wonder what happened to Valentine. He was being held down on the floor. Above him, the headsman's axe was ready to descend. Valentine kept talking. The headsman was trained not to execute until the condemned person stopped speaking. Valentine had a lot to say, but he couldn't keep talking forever. But by the time everyone knew that the queen had passed away, Valentine pointed out to the headsman that he didn't have to carry out an order of a former queen, a dead queen. He could put away his axe. And that's the way the story ends.